Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yo, welcome back to another edition of the Men Who Cry podcast. Again, like, subscribe, review, tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend to tell a friend. If you're not doing these things, I have to assume you're not going to give that new J. Cole album 5 mics on today's episode. You already know what we're talking about. We're going to be talking about the real Super Bowl, but we got to start first with the game, the football game, which wasn't very good, but it was a football game, and we are not allowed to say that a football game wasn't very good. We just had the Super Bowl, Seahawks versus the Pats, in a game that was kind of a slugfest, definitely in the first half. I would definitely say that wasn't a very entertaining game. It's a little bit hard sometimes because I feel like on defense, a lot of defensive players are kind of stuck in this quagmire in the sense that if we do not have a lot of points scored or a lot of touchdowns, we look at the game as bad because the defense is doing so well. And frankly, the NFL agrees because they make all these rules to help the offensive players score points. Yeah, that was a rough one. In general, I felt that we picked the Seahawks, me and Reek, before this happened. I was really confident that the under was going to hit until about the fourth quarter. Then Drake May just started to turn the ball over a bunch, and then that's where Seattle kind of took over the moment. I watched this game not in New York. I watched this game at a friend's home with their family. Shout out to them. And by about the second quarter, I was like, if Seattle scores a touchdown at any point of this game is going to be over. Now, as soon as Seattle did score a touchdown, the Patriots came back and scored another touchdown. And you thought, because right after that possession, the Patriots got exactly what you wanted, right? They got the touchdown, and then they got another 3-and-out, right? So as soon as that happened, you're thinking, okay, somehow, some way, even if the Patriots are able to get 3 points, this is a whole new game, right? At that point. And that's exactly when Drake May threw what I thought was going to be considered a fumble. They called it an interception or whatever. And that was essentially what the game was. I'm interested to see this idea of, I'm going to talk about the Seahawks in a little bit, but talk about the Pats first. And I think there's this growing belief now that the Patriots were kind of overrated all year. And I don't think in football, strength of schedule matters that much, right? You in large part have to play who's on your schedule. You in large part, like, this is a reason why it's really hard to repeat getting to the Super Bowl because, if you win your division the year before, you typically are going to have a really tough time getting back to the playoffs or win your division again because you play all the really, really hard teams next year in your conference, right? And depending on how it shakes out, you might play one of the better teams in the other conference, whether if you're in the AFC or the NFC respectively. And I think the Patriots did get a lot of good breaks. I don't think their schedule was good. Obviously, it was one of the worst schedules of all time, for a team to be able to get to Super Bowl. But they're just still professional athletes. You still have to beat the people on your schedule and get to the Super Bowl. What I do think happened was that their quarterback got somewhat exposed. And you can look at how Drake May played during the regular season. He was this close to winning MVP, and that would have looked real, real, real bad if he had won MVP and then went on to give that type of performance in the Super Bowl. When they had the whole meme of Sam Darnolds saying against the Patriots before that he was seeing ghosts, Drake May was seeing ghosts. I mean, they hit him so many times that he was throwing the ball before his receivers were even breaking. And I think that's one of the best examples sometimes of how a defense can impose its will without actually getting statistical numbers. The defense had a great game, whether you watched it or count the statistics at all, but Drake May clearly was shook, okay? And he wasn't able to finally get over it, right? I don't necessarily think he was hurt enough to the point where he couldn't throw the ball. I mean, he did throw a touchdown. He threw multiple interceptions, so other people were able to catch his passes, but it looked like he was hesitant to run the ball, but he definitely didn't get a lot of help from his O-line, which was dreadful. And I think overall for this Patriots team, this Patriots season, I think you have to look at it as just frankly as a success. You obviously have one of the best coaches in your conference, if not just the NFL in general. And you would think that you had a quarterback that was good enough to get you to the Super Bowl. You have these two big, large boxes check. But now what's going to follow Drake May, as odd as it's going to seem, is as if, is he going to be a playoff riser? Which is odd to say of a guy who just got to the Super Bowl in his second year, right? And who almost won MVP. But he was terrible, not just in this game, but in every single playoff game. Every game he did not play well. And now what's going to happen to him is that next season, you would think that they're going to be in the playoffs again. They might not. We'll see what happens with their schedule. Obviously, they're going to have a much tougher schedule next season than they did this season. But his first playoff game that he plays well in will be the first playoff game he's ever played well in. Now, let's not put the cart before the horse. The guy is super young, second youngest quarterback to ever make the Super Bowl. He still has a lot of time. But unfortunately, what happens with a lot of stuff in sports is narratives built. The narrative on him that's going to be on him is going to be, can he actually be a guy to play well in the playoffs? The Patriots will still have enough money and draft picks to build around him, and he's not going to cost them anything going forward. But he's going to get paid, right? I doubt that they're going to move off a guy who helped get them to the Super Bowl. Whether or not he was carried to the Super Bowl or not, he played well enough to be in MVP conversations. He was part of the reason that they got the seed that they did. So he's going to get paid at some point down the line. And then at that point, that's when you're like kind of in this hard zone of, okay, if we're paying our quarterback $40, $50, $60 million, whatever the money's going to be at the time, he is going to have to be a guy that is going to have to rise and lift up his team. And he was just a guy who straight up was just carried all the way into the postseason. Switching gears now to a little bit talk about the Seahawks, a team that I had getting to the NFC Championship game, but I did have them losing to the Los Angeles Rams. And frankly, the game that probably should have represented the Super Bowl, which was the Seattle Seahawks versus the Rams 2 weeks prior to this game. It is a real testament to Sam Darnold. Now, we were going to have a little bit of revisionist history with Sam. He was not good at all. Most of his time in the NFL, he was bad with the Jets. He was bad with the Panthers. He was a backup with the 49ers. And it wasn't until J.J. McCarthy for the Vikings 2 years ago suffered a really significant knee injury where he was able to come in and really kind of get his career started again, right? And then do that and then go to Seattle and do this. It is a shame. I mean, anytime to make fun of the Jets is always a good time to do so, but I don't even think the Jets are the team that should be the most upset, right? Because frankly, I just don't believe anything good will ever happen to the Jets so long as that they're owned by their owner. I think if you were a Minnesota Vikings fan, you should be pretty irate because you had this guy in the building. He had a great season with you. You had a great season. He had two really bad games at the end of the season. One was a game to get into was to be the 1 seed, and the next game was the game to make the playoffs. That was a little bit weird as well because they lost that game, and then they had to go to Arizona because of the LA fire, so they weren't playing in LA. Because I do wonder if the Vikings played in Los Angeles. I mean, you're going to have most Vikings fans be out there. What happens if that he does win that game and he has more of a home field advantage versus playing in Arizona, which is like a kind of a weirder place to be in? My point saying all this is that Sam Darnold is more of a testament of believing in yourself, right? When most people don't believe in you, you got to believe in you, okay? Now, with that said, he was not good. I mean, the Patriots got beat pretty bad. And like I said, like I personally, after the second quarter, kind of thought that the Patriots weren't going to win this game. The only reason they even had a chance in this game, like a real legitimate, like you can see them finding a way to win this game, was because Sam Darnold was not playing. I mean, the first play of the game, it looked like Sam Darnold was about to throw a pick six. The first play, okay? And they couldn't convert in the red zone, meaning they couldn't get any touchdowns. And the fact of the matter is that Sam missed multiple guys for touchdowns. I mean, there was the Kenneth Walker touchdown that happened late that got called back on a holding. There was the JSN touchdown that could have happened as well on the deep shot when he kind of like scrambled out and threw it, but he overshot him. There was the other touchdown that he could have had before the half ended where JSN was able to get behind Gonzo, but Sam Darnold, he threw it too late. Gonzo was able to come back into the play and almost intercept that pass. Like, he gave New England, and I think if you looked at it, because when you watch the game, New England was pressed up on them and sitting on all their routes. So it looked like to me the game plan that Mike Vrabel had was he's going to throw one. And he almost did multiple times in that game, but ultimately credit to him for able to not making the big mistake. He didn't have a turnover this entire playoffs after he led the NFL in turnovers during the regular season and played clean football. And the same thing that I will say, give the compliment to Sam Darnold this time that I gave to Drake May 2 games ago was your stat at this point in the season, your stats do not matter. All right. You do not matter. It is simply about making plays in the time that you have to make plays to be able to secure victories. And the reason why I gave Drake May credit for how he played in the Denver game when there was like a monsoon, or I keep saying monsoon, when there was a snowstorm versus, kind of comparing that to how Sam Darnold played was that game was very clearly a game of if you do not turn the ball over, you will win this game. And that is how the Patriots, I believe, won that game. Same thing was said about the Seattle game. Once it got to about halftime, the Patriots showed no ability to move the ball. They came out of halftime after that long halftime that we had because of the Bad Bunny performance and immediately went 3-0. Like, they had no ability, or they showed no signs that they were ever going to move the ball against the side of the ball that I think should have probably had the MVP on it, which is the Seattle defense, which they're now calling the dark side. But the Seattle defense was odd because typically when we have these great defenses, right, and defenses with a name that you think about, they have some level of player that you think, oh, this guy is going to be a no doubt about it Hall of Famer, right? What do you think about the Ravens with Ray Lewis? You think about the Buccaneers, the 2000 Buccaneers with Warren Sapp, right? Those guys had multiple Hall of Famers on it. The Seattle defense with Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas, those guys had multiple great defensive players. The Orange Crush back in the day. Like, those teams all had nicknames, but they all had defenders that you're like, those guys are going to Hall of Fame. This defense is really young, but it's like essentially all really good players, right? There's not necessarily a guy who's maybe a star or a superstar. Maybe Devin Witherspoon, who I actually think should have won Super Bowl MVP. Maybe that guy can develop into who it is, but they didn't have like a star pass rusher. Like, DeMarcus Lawrence has been in the league for years, Leonard Williams was considered a bust by a lot of people in the league for years. Those guys had played for multiple teams and like they were around. They're good. They're very good players, but no one ever thinks that they're actually going to be, this level of like Hall of Fame level players. And they band together, came through and kick the teeth in the Patriots. And I think the thing that makes it even more confusing about why, this defense had that type of run is that the last game they played, Matt Stafford, again, credit to him, he carved those guys up. And it's not just he carved them up then, he carved them up 2 other times, And I think that it's just hard to try and like put them in like an all-time, great tier just because, we saw all the games and at times they didn't look like a team like that. But maybe that is just a growing point of what's going to happen with Stafford, the reason why he was able to win MVP. Complete credit to Seattle, complete credit to John Snyder, who is the GM who put this team together. First GM to ever have essentially two completely different teams, different head coach, different quarterback, 2 different times to win the Super Bowl. So they're actually playing his stuff right now on SportsCenter. GM since 2010. So got to 3 Super Bowls, won 2. An incredible job for what took place. All right, we actually talk about the real stuff that happened on the halftime show. Bad Bunny halftime show, and I think this halftime show confirmed, and what has really been the halftime shows for the last couple of times has shown is if you don't like these halftime shows, man, there's just a level of hate inside of you that you got to get dealt with. I remember I was watching the halftime shows back in the day when I was a kid, and it was like The Who was playing, and them shows were trash, straight up trash. And again, being from New York, you hear you hear music, Latin music all the time, right? And if you aren't able to get a little bit of a whine in, my brother, there might be something wrong with you. Bad Bunny has the most watched Super Bowl in history. He slightly has beaten out Kendrick Lamar from last year for the most watched Super Bowl going on. And it was such a vibe setting kind of Super Bowl where there's so many things happening where he's walking through the sugarcane. That bar, I didn't even know with I'm not even trying to repeat the name of it, but the place that everyone says that's in Williamsburg, I didn't realize I've been there before. I've been there one time. Crazy story. I went there with an ex and her roommates met her husband. Well, I'm not say husband. Met the person that seemed to they had a child with at the time when they were there, which is such a crazy, like, random story. But that place is very small, but as they would say, it is a great place to just have a little bit of a party and a little bit of dancing too. That to me, Super Bowl was one where you can just see a guy saying, I'm putting on for my city and y'all about to see what my city is about to do. And it was truly incredible. A guy who I felt like met the moment. This album from Bad Bunny isn't necessarily my personal favorite. I've actually like other different Bad Bunny albums, but sitting up here and acting as if like we need to have English speaking, or these idiots thinking that again, I do not understand where are we deporting this man to, back to America, a part of the country, like this. Just very idiotic of the things that people are saying. But that's the thing. That's part of the movement of, that side. It is how dumb and hateful can we be and just rev that up each and every time to make ourselves sound dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber. That is what I believe will be the takeaway from this whole Super Bowl experience, is how a guy who came in, got all this crap, people were just throwing out essential slurs at this point towards him, and him overcoming it, and one of the most beautiful things that he had, as I saw reading it, is the fact that he said that essentially his name is Bad Bunny, and I want to let you know that I believe in you. And like I said earlier before about Sam Darnold, sometimes that's all that takes, right? At the first sight of you getting to be anything successful, you got to be the person that believes in what you got to do, right? Because if you don't believe in you, no one else will. So shout out to Bad Bunny, my man vibing. To speak to overall of just like the nature, I would say, of people's concern, right? I did not know what my brother was saying a lot of that time. I'm not going to hold you. But frankly, that's not the case with most music. Most music is not about knowing every word. Most music is not about knowing every song lyric. It's not knowing what this means in the moment. It is about catching a vibe. And that thing looked fun. It looked like something that you would want to be a part of. I mean, my man had Jessica Alba out there again, Asian gracefully. Thank goodness for her. Like, Cardi B was out there, Karol G. You had Ronald Acuna Jr. was there. I'm shocked. My guy Francisco Lindor, because I know him and Bad Bunny are friends. He wasn't there, but the man had a wedding on top of the whole party, right? That was a real wedding. You know what I'm saying? Like, he clearly said, I'm going to do what I'm going to do and make this thing pop. And the fact that people decided to watch a Kid Rock concert when Kid Rock hasn't been relevant since the 2000s is a testament to just pure, unadulterated hate. Now, the capitalist in me will look at what happened, will also say that this thing will probably keep going because, again, hate is what simply fuels that side. And so long as they have more brown, black women, people like that up there on stage performing, there'll still be a space for people to have these alternative, type of programming. But dog, y'all didn't beat out the puppy show, which had like 13 million views. So it is just a conglomerate of hate and the ability to try and pretend that I'm hating. Please come see me hate on something that everyone seemed to vibe with. I personally can't understand the idea of hating on something that you frankly don't care about and are just making things into some type of war that doesn't need to be happening. But that was ultimately one of the best Super Bowl performances of all time. So shout out to Bad Bunny and everyone of the people who knows what was happening. Because as someone who's part of communities where you don't got to explain to everything to people for them to get it, he ain't got to explain everything to everyone for you to get it, for you to have a good time. All right, y'all. That is the show that we have today. Thank you guys again for listening to the Men Who Cry podcast. Again, like, subscribe, review, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. We'll be back talking all these good things later on in the week. All right, y'all. Peace out.